Hello there.
Hello.
How are you?
Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you, man.
It's good. This is a case where I'd say good to be seen.
We're all alive. Happy day after the president
Oh my God.
the former president is gone.
That's right. For those tuning in, as it were. It's January 21st, the day after the transition, if you can call it a transition.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was not non-traditional.
Oh my God. It was very strange to wake up this morning in this new world where you just kind of rely on the fact that nothing interesting was going to happen
right
overnight.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I had to check my phone for update. It was the first morning that I woke up and really there were no updates. And then of course an update came in saying, that Trump's vaccine plan was never really a plan. So it just, that there is no, now Biden's starting from scratch. It's like, they didn't have a rollout plan. It's like, bizarro world, man. Bizarro.
Right. I don't think the word plan ever entered his lexicon.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Just zero. Just thought he would slide through, basically doing as much damage on the fly as he could.
Yeah.
And that succeeded. He did a lot of damage on the fly,
He did. I was surprised that the last 24 hours were as tepid as they were.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there had to be reasons for it. I mean, we don't know all what really was going on those last couple of days. One day that'll be divulged.
Right. Yeah. Well, he'll come back next week. He'll be president next week again. So, just taking a break.
I don't hear you. Okay, so how are you? Where are you?
I'm in my my office in New Jersey. Across the river there. Well, you're not. Are you still in Manhattan right now, or did you move upstate?
No, I'm not. Yeah. And that's why I would run into you always at the Montclair Film Festival.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
It was nearby. No, I'm in my office, and actually, it's funny. Ignore some of that, but right there is what you got going on in your background.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've got the badges, and those are usually I have those in the background just to show off, and and usually that's like 1 year of badges, and that that's really 2 years of badges because there were no film festivals last year. So,
and the festivals that I'm going, like I just got my accreditation for Slam Dance, which I've never really gone to in person.
Right.
So it in a way, Darren, it accomplishes a couple of things. One is like I kind of get to keep up with some of the remaining festival films that are around right now, but also probably can make it go easier when maybe in 2022 or 3 when it's in person again.
Yeah.
And I could go and physically maybe go at that point. It's one of the reasons I brought you on, to kind of get your crystal ball gaze and to try to understand. I don't know if you have any thoughts. We don't have to talk about it immediately. We could talk about you first, but then maybe we could also talk about what does the world of festivals look like in according to your predictions, whether perhaps it's a much more localized experience.
Right.
There are enough of them to make that happen, I suppose. But we're used to traveling most of the year.
Yeah.
More when you have a film under your belt, but typically you want to still be out there.
Right.
And you might have half a dozen film festivals that you go to. I don't know.
Yeah, I do multiples a year. I mean, I do many a year. I mean, I've been really fortunate with all of the directors I've worked with for the most part, where they, we just kind of split up the travel, and sometimes there's overlapping travel. I mean, when we did Ebert Fest last year, there was overlapping travel, so I got to go back out, and they were happy to have me because I'd been there with Tangerine, so we'd already formulated that relationship. But
because you're representing the film, because the filmmaker is at another festival that might be happening at the same time, or
exactly.
Let's take a baby step back.
Sure.
So, hello, welcome. This is your first time on, and as long as I've known you, this is your first time. But I guess doing the show now like this, where I'm doing stuff on the YouTube channel in addition to the podcast allows me to invite all my friends on.
That's awesome.
It really is, and to help maybe get the word out about projects and, just sort of connect with people that might be interested in the subject matter of the state of the independent film. So, okay, sorry about that. Let me just silence my phone.
No worries. I think I've silenced mine.
It's okay.
No,
It's
I'm over 50, so like technology is not my strong suit.
Well, you did well today. You were right on time, and
There we go.
Your office looks good.
Well, I'm not spinning my camera. You'll notice everything. 10 o'clock this morning, I was up, carefully placing the trash that's in this office, so that all you see is badges, Florida Project, maybe a Gotham Award back there, and an old Roger Moore poster.
Your favorite Bond. So how did you start? What's your origin story in film? How did you end up being a film producer?
It's really interesting. I'd started out working for comic book conventions when I was 12 years old, which is now, it was Creation Con, and now it's something else. And they do all the very specialized, like, hey, Supernatural's coming to town, kind of stuff, and Trek and stuff like that. And that was a great experience because it get me access to, and I'd always been a film fan. The first film I had ever seen was Captain's Courageous on Channel 11 here in New York, at 11:30 at night. My mother used to let me stay up on school nights, and we watched Captain's Courageous in Boys Town, became a huge Spencer Tracy fan. And then so I always knew that I really wanted to work in film.
Okay.
That being a reality is totally something different. But I got exposed to film, went to college for film, and dropped out a year and a half later. It was at that point that took care of a sick relative, then took care of another sick relative. And then when I was about to get married in my, mid 30s, my wife was like, look, or my wife to be was like, look, go back to school. My parents want you to, have something to fall back on in case this, this other career that you had, which was, I was working in marketing, which isn't that different necessarily from producing, because we're always selling something. So
true.
So I went back and I went, I was like, I'm not going to be a filmmaker. It's a, too late in my life and stuff like that. So I went back for writing, and I was going to be a journalist and, an editor. And my senior year, I had an elective for a screenwriting class. And I was like, oh, I'll take that. That'll be fun. It'll be my last gasp. And so I did that, and the school actually vied for the script that I wrote. They wanted it to be the senior thesis. And, I wasn't taking it very serious, but I was like, okay, sure, that's fine. And, won a bunch of, and it ended up being filmed by the seniors. I got to direct it, won a bunch of awards. And then a young whippersnapper filmmaker who worked at a marketing firm with me by the name of Sean Baker, who I was dear friends with. We were friends for 10 years at that point, I think. Said, hey man, let me see your movie. I want to, and he liked it, and invited me to come co-write a film called Prince of Broadway, which I did. And a few days into shooting the film, the producer, who was on the film, lovely guy, but he had just gotten married. He had, his wife was pregnant, didn't like the criminal element on the film. And from what you probably know about Sean, we're dealing with folks who are on folks who are outliers, really, and on the periphery of society, and frequently fall under what people might consider the criminal element, even though their position in life is often constructed by the social situation. And so I ended up, Sean was like, do you know how to produce, or do you want to learn how to produce? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I said, how hard can that be? So made Prince of Broadway. It was like making a movie with my best friend in his backyard. His backyard happened to be New York. And that was it. I kept constantly telling myself, this is my, me living my fantasy. This is it, just fun. And then I'll go back to marketing, or I'll go write or whatever. And I guess, it was like a couple of years later, by the time I was on the, red carpet at the Spirit Awards with a Jameson in my hand being interviewed by Entertainment Tonight, I kind of went, yeah, maybe this is something I can get used to.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, that film really like changed my life. And then I just started producing from there. Sort of abandoned the writing until more recently, just because I got caught up and people wanted to work with me. And I've had great fortune in the directors I've gotten to work with, as well as the projects I've gotten to just handpick. Um, but that's the how I came to this in a nutshell. No formal training. The best experience you can have is learning on set anyway, which is what I
Right.
always recommend when I, the school that I teach for, New York Film Academy, and a lot of the other schools I teach, SCAD, and a bunch of other schools as well, especially now in COVID. But I'm sure I'm much to the chagrin of the administration, I'm always recommending just like getting on set is more important than what you're gonna learn at a computer through books, because it's a vastly different experience for every single one of us. I could never teach you what your experience is going to be on set. All I do is I teach my mistakes and hope people learn from them.
Right. Well, that's a very s- smart way to go. Teaching mistakes, it just takes a little bit less ego but what great, way to enter that,
Right.
because often learn far more from mistakes than you do from your successes.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, my ego is still this big, so I'm more than happy to share that with people too. But
Um,
but I like kind of boiling it
yeah.
down to facts.
Well, Prince of Broadway is a great film, and I think
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I even have a copy sitting around on DVD around here, believe it or not. Um, but and then there's the more recent project was the Infiltrators.
So had 3 films released in the pandemic. That was great.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so it was Infiltrators, which won. See, I didn't turn that phone off. I'm just gonna turn it completely off.
You made your point. You didn't have to go that far.
So Infiltrators was one of 3 films that were released in the pandemic. That was directed by Alex Rivera and Christina Barra, and that won at Sundance. It won the Next Audience Award, as well as the Innovator Award that was presented by Laurie Anderson. And then also playing Sundance was Premature, which was Rashad Ernesto Green's follow-up to Gun Hill Road.
Right.
And that did not win at Sundance, but it got nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, Cassavetes Award, which is a favorite of mine, since I'm usually coming in under that
Sure.
500,000 mark.
Sure.
And that got distribution through IFC, but is now living on Hulu. With a subscription, you can see it. It's great.
What is that one? What is this film called?
It's called Premature.
I did see it. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. It's
That was the one we were talking. We were trying to work things out with.
Yeah. And then
Right.
also did Short History of the Long Road, which was directed by
I
Ani
saw.
Kennedy. And
Right.
so you've seen them all.
Mostly, yeah. I do.
So it was a really great year critically for the stuff that I did, but and to be honest, it was a year that I kind of like checked a box, and it was like I usually do films with Sean or something like that where we take it 18 months or whatever, and we're just like grueling on that. And when I entered these arrangements with with all of these films, I was just like, okay, so I'm here until we finish shooting, supportive on the post, but I need to move on to this other project because I just really wanted it to be a prolific year,
Right.
for reasons that I was choosing projects that I really love, but also because that benefits the career. Well, then we had COVID, so there was absolutely no benefit to really being able to travel with the films, no real benefit to being able to go to red carpets and open and interview, and because nobody was really seeing a lot of this stuff. I'm fortunate that all of those films have found really great platforms, and can be found on iTunes and stuff like that. And but it was an interesting year for sure.
Or you have relationships with some of those companies that run those platforms? Because there must be hungry for content, or being concerned about it. I mean, they have plenty of episodics, it seems, but
oh yeah. No, I mean, so in terms of like some of the platforms like iTunes, of course we have because of Tangerine, we have some relationships with Apple and stuff like that. And we've known, some of the folks who run, those platforms. And yeah, I mean, even with Netflix, we've got, some friends, there's some friends over there, and Hulu, I'm sorry, IFC, we've known for a while. And, we do rely on distributors a little bit. I think that those are really the relationships that we have that are stronger than, directly with some of the streamers. I mean, obviously, I've known Ted Hope for years, but he just left, Amazon. So, but yeah, I mean, you try to foster those relationships as much as you can when you're out on the road. So there's some relationships, but it's again, during a pandemic, it's just a very, very interesting kind of scenario.
Have you developed any strategies for what the next year or the road looks like for the next year or two, considering there'll be great constraints? If it could be longer than that if there's another pandemic on any kind of size. Yeah. Whether or not there's vaccines available or not, there's going to be limitations.
Yeah, so I've always maintained, or I've maintained since last year. Everybody's just like, got this movie, want to make this movie, and it's like, I've got these great filmmakers who come to me all the time who just want to share their work. And for the most part, it's like, it's really interesting because I'm used to the run and gun, and I'm kind of experienced, in the past I've experienced like the run and gun, like, we got to shoot now. And, and I'm usually for that. I like that energy a lot. And while I did experience some of that during the pandemic, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Most of the directors I'm working with have been just very responsible. Like, yeah, let's wait until fall. Let's do, so, I've got, several things in the pipeline ready to go. Some already financed and stuff like that, which is fantastic. And some supported by, some great production companies. So, I'm very, very fortunate in that, like, when it's time to open, when we can do it safely, we'll be able to make these films. And I've just been like, I'm not going to run an unsafe set. I'm not, it's like, I like guerrilla filmmaking, but I'm not going to, that's, giving people.
There you're talking about potentially life and death situation.
Yeah, exactly. So now, and I had what my doctor believes was COVID in February of last year. While I was on tour with the Infiltrators, I ended up in the ICU in South Carolina, touring on the Southern Circuit Film Tour with the Infiltrators. And I was in the ICU for 10 days. I was out cold. My wife drove down and eventually brought me home. And, they couldn't identify it. They didn't know what it was. They thought it was pneumonia, but they'd never seen anything like it before. So now we've backtracked, and it's like, well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. So I've just been terrified,
they didn't at some point, right? I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, they did the
antibodies,
but they did the antibodies like 4 or 5 months later.
So they may not have them anymore.
So there's no way of knowing whether it was COVID or not, but I do know it was a life and death situation. And, not
sounds like you may have been an early case.
Yeah. So not knowing, for sure has had me terrified, because it's like, well, if it was COVID, maybe I've got antibodies, but if it wasn't, I could die. So I was really fortunate. My wife is a not a first responder, but essential worker. She works in mental health. So she was one of the first folks to get her vaccine 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And just by stroke of luck, and because of pre-existing conditions, I was able to get a vaccine this Saturday. So I'm so excited about this, because it's like, then 28 days later, I'll be able to say, all right, if anybody wants to come to work, let's do this and make sure we all have our vaccines, and, and try to do this safely.
Right.
So I'm excited about getting back to work now,
Yeah, sure. It's starting to look like there's a little light at the end of the tunnel there. And I also had gotten a virus in February.
Right. Oh, right.
The doctor I ended up going to for a test only, I'm going to say 3 months ago, maybe not even, didn't think I had it. I've been tested twice, right, because I have a mother in a nursing home.
Right.
So to visit her, I have to get myself tested.
Yeah.
Before I can see her. But back in February, I'd say a week before we went into lockdown, if that, it may have been the week. I had a virus, and I coincidentally had a doctor's appointment, a checkup that particular week, because I had scheduled it with my, ahead of time.
Right.
And I didn't, and I decided, well, this is good. I'm not feeling well, and I actually have a doctor's appointment. We were joking. The doctor was kind of joking. Oh, you have COVID, like, because it was just like 2 days later, it was no longer a joke.
Right. Oh my God.
But I barely felt it. I mean, I barely had any, symptoms, and I mean, I had a little fever overnight, I remember, and I think I had like a runny nose for a while. It probably wasn't
Right.
COVID,
All right.
but it could have been.
It could have been. Yeah.
It could have been. But I didn't get antibody test until, like I say, many months later.
Yeah. I mean, which was kind of, it probably was a relief in some ways, but at the same time, it's sort of, not, but it's not falling on the scale, just because they started reporting that, 20, 30, 40 days later, antibodies were gone. So
Right.
it's just a complex thing to work through, this whole COVID thing.
Sure. The other thing that I know that you were involved with, because my friend Mark Rabinowitz,
Oh yeah. Okay.
has been also, I guess, marginally, or I don't know how much involved with, is the Pandemic Players.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's
where you guys
awesome.
do
Okay.
readings.
Yeah. We started out towards the end of last year with a benefit for Covenant House. We did it's of classic screenplays.
Right. So you did Raising Arizona. I was asked the day before, like 2 days before.
I know.
And the people that I asked to get on, none of them seemed to be available.
We were struggling with that. We're relaunching in February, I believe. So
let's do a cast thing on here. I can moderate it. You guys can use it if you want to use it as a promotional thing.
Absolutely.
Or potentially.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great idea. It works. It works. Obviously, this technology works for what you're doing to raise money, but it can also work from a promotional standpoint.
Absolutely.
To do a little kind of almost an extra.
Absolutely. No, I really want to make that happen. And so we did Raising Arizona. It was Zach Levi, it was Allison Pill, Clancy Brown, Macon Blair,
right. Great cast.
Dean Norris. I mean, what a great,
pretty much all friends of this show too.
I mean, Jeff Dowd, the dude, came on. It was great. He played
the original dude that Jeff.
Yeah.
That Jeff Bridges. Based.
Yeah.
Or that Coen brothers based it on.
Yeah. So we had a Coen connection in the project itself.
That's wonderful.
But we have I'll even say here what we have coming up. We've got we're doing Breakfast Club, and we're doing Heather's next. Those are the two that we're doing next, and we're really excited. We're just working out details with the cast and stuff like that. But the Breakfast Club is one of the most culturally diverse casts I've been excited to work with
on the Criterion Collection.
There you go. Yeah. And then there'll be some surprises with others. I think everybody will be surprised with who's coming in for that one. So, we're planning more for later in the year, but we're just, it's just like, honestly, it's like sitting around in this, you sit around on your fat butt and, and gain weight and, drink alcohol and go like, well, this will be over soon. And, and the bottom line is you start feeling pretty useless. And, especially if you're in,
this is not seltzer, right? Exactly.
And, and so the bottom line is like, if you can do something to feel, feel useful, but also feel creative,
feel connected. It sort of meets a number of needs, a project like that, because as you say, you're doing something beneficial, you're connecting, you're being creative, it's very difficult to put everything that you feel passionate about on hold indefinitely.
It's tough,
very stressful.
Yeah. And it's like, you want to write, but then you've got the writer's block, and then you've got, but then, and then you want to write, but then you've got homeschool, then you want, like things like, so there's outlets, but there's all these roadblocks that, crop up. Nobody's really, prepared to, live for a year in their living room,
Yeah. Like I say, I've done a bunch. I did back in the early or fall, I should say, not early fall, but just during the fall. I did a bunch of virtual festivals.
Nice.
I'm up in the. I'm actually. You asked me earlier where I was. I didn't
Right.
tell you. I'm up in the Hudson Valley. Actually,
Right.
I
That's
left
what I
the
thought.
city. Yeah, so I'm, you know, amidst farms, which is
Beautiful.
really nice. But I'm right by Woodstock, so
Oh, great.
I actually got to go to even a Woodstock. They did a couple of a bunch of drive-in screenings
Cool.
as a number of festivals, are figuring out. This is like
Right.
one idea that everybody, if you have the capacity to do it, if you're geographically set for that and you
Right.
can do it, it's a great, maybe temporary or ongoing solution. It might be if it's in a warmer part of the month or you're in a warmer climate, it might be a good ongoing way to do your festival. I mean, it was a delightful experience, and I really enjoyed going. It was, yeah. I'm trying to remember the film now, but I'm going to embarrass myself. Anyway, so my point being that it's great to have this option of seeing festival films at home.
Right.
And I upgraded everything here, so I can enjoy films here in a more cinematic way.
Right.
But there's all these other things that, of course, you don't get.
Oh no, there's a lot you don't get. I will say I'm waiting till next Thursday. My 65-inch is being delivered. So I'm finally upgrading my TV so I can,
Wow.
so I can watch films in a more cinematic way.
Yeah.
But I've been working with a 30-something, TV the whole time, and I've just been refusing to watch things like Tenet and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that the innovations that a lot of these festivals are showing is really great. And I think that, I think Indianapolis, maybe Nashville, had already been doing these drive-in type screenings well before the pandemic, like years before.
Sure.
And so I think that's that's a testament to wanting to explore that medium and explore a dying art form. I mean, drive-ins are obviously as dying as celluloid, and I think they're poised to make a nice little comeback right now.
That's what I've been thinking too, and I hope so, because it actually does lend itself. I mean,
yeah, no, for sure.
it falls into the new way of presenting, or exhibiting is a better word, films that the theaters have been trying to do with their limited amount they can do.
Right.
I mean, you have a theater, there's only so many things you can do to sort of broaden what's the better word for it is to I'm losing my mind here. Just to embellish, I guess, right, the cinema experience, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the food, the drinking, the
enhance.
There we go. That was the exact word I was going for. You're hired. So cushy seats. I'm not sure what else. I mean, Q&As, bringing more, having more interactive components to the experience of going to the theater is helpful.
Right.
But, so I think in a way, drive-ins are a nice, additional thing. I mean, you're more Absolutely. Isolated potentially inside your vehicle.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that, and first of all, it keeps you safe, potentially, except for those who choose not to be. But if I can drive up to, whether it be, Montclair was running them. There's a couple of really great drive-ins here in Warwick is up in New York. There's another one up in New York. And then there's Fair Falls, Fairview, something like that.
We have a lot. We have a good amount of New York is good.
Yeah. And then, and just the idea of being able to pull in. Oh, and then they were doing all these things at Queens at the fairgrounds and stuff like that as well.
Right. But you could do a pop-up drive-in. I mean,
yeah,
it's not
just knowing that my kids are safe.
Right.
Of course, observe things like, hey, kids, pee before you leave the house. But
think about how wonderful it is also the drive-in experience, especially if once things, as they increasingly get safer, meaning
Right.
vaccines are introduced and, you know, fewer people have are exposed, etc. It's a nice way to, and then before and after you can mingle. I mean, there could be food trucks, or,
Yep.
you know, many drive-ins have a kitchen also,
Yep.
but, you know, I mean, it's just, it's almost like a little festival experience,
Exactly.
even if it's just a typical drive-in.
Yeah, no, I mean, and when things are normal, yeah, it's exactly that. And it's like, you know, you pull it. I remember, you know, like my brother texting me like, you know, the year before the pandemic, just like, hey, let's meet up at the drive-in. And like, that's, you know, it's like, haven't done that in years. And it's like, and thank God some of them actually still exist. And, you know, and I think that if people have not, you know, done it, gone, you know, post-COVID, go, man. It's just a fun experience. You know, it's just, and I think I do think it can enhance things like film festivals for sure. Because it's almost like, you know, we're doing you know, some sort of a retrospective. You know, it's like, this is an art form that used to exist. You're seeing it the way it's meant to be seen, you know, pull your car in and experience this for the first time. I mean, you know, I can't believe how many people haven't been to a drive-in until this year. You know,
But did you and I seem to be roughly in the same generation, right?
Yeah.
We're probably have the same references are the same.
So yeah.
What's that?
I'm 54, so yeah.
I was gonna say, I thought you said 34 because I
oh, that's you, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a little older, but we grew up where, even though I grew up in New York, my parents, I grew up in Queens, but
Right.
my parents, so they always had a car, and we drove. I remember occasionally going to drive-ins.
Yep.
Just as a thing. Maybe it was in Long Island, I don't know. But, you know, they had these crappy speakers that you hooked onto your window.
Yep.
And now it's just there's a radio, you get a radio frequency, which is really like a audio wise. And of course, cars have much better audio systems built in.
Right.
So it's a very, you know, good experience.
I have to admit, I miss the thing, hooking the thing onto the window. It's just a part of the experience for me.
Well, retro wise, maybe they can make that available to you.
I can remember 2 George C. Scott films that I saw in a drive-in. One was Day of the Dolphin.
I was gonna guess. But...
And then, well, there's the other one. There was another one about a trial and monkeys, and I can't remember. Was it Inherit the? No. I can't remember, but it was, you know, but it was and an old Roddy McDowall movie that I've never been able to find called Arnold, with Elsa Lanchester, and it's just a really weird, fun movie that I've always wanted to see again, but it's kind of missing in action. There are a bunch of them though. I mean, I think I might have seen. There's definitely a Liz Taylor movie in there somewhere.
I saw. The only one I remember seeing, and I know I saw a bunch, and I went also at summer camps. Even in Vermont, or maybe it might have been in New Hampshire, the actual drive-in, seeing, I think we saw The Shining even.
Oh, wow.
But when I was a kid, I remember seeing 10,000 BC with Raquel Welch.
Oh my God.
That's awesome. That was, even for a young pipsqueak like me, that aged me quickly. That matured me quite a bit, just seeing Raquel Welch in that you know, little whatever skin, bear skin, or little outfit she had.
My 5-year-old, who just turned 5, is absolutely obsessed. Yeah, you can start saying I'm a bad parent right now. Is absolutely obsessed with Birds of Prey. They got a hold of it, and there are certain scenes where we're fortunate enough that they're, you know, they let us fast forward through, but you know, my 5-year-old is just obsessed with Harley Quinn, and I'm like, yeah, she's gonna kill us in our sleep.
The torn fishnets, right? That's
yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, but let's not get distracted. Go down that rabbit hole, so to speak.
There you go.
Anyway, any other thoughts about? I mean, I just wish I had a sense of what the festivals. I can't imagine people anytime soon traveling to festivals like on the scale we were all this time, maybe never again. I don't know.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was a part of Tribeca's All Access back in April, I guess, and then I was doing the filmmaker summit for the Berkshire Film Festival this September, I believe September, October, somewhere around there. Time flies, but you know, we're you know, everything was virtual. I mean, they weren't running the festival virtual yet. They hadn't started that. Neither of them had really started that yet, but they kept the filmmaker access stuff kind of going, which I think is very, very important. Where we do stuff, you know, like on Zoom, and you know, you're talking to young filmmakers or filmmakers who, you know, God knows, might want to hear from you, you know, what your experiences have been, and you know, and you kind of talk them through that. And I think that stuff is really, really important. So that's something that I think is definitely going to continue in some way, shape, or form. The interesting thing about festivals in the future is, you know, I do think that they're gonna, you know, obviously everybody's going virtual now, so you know, there's lots of virtual festivals, but my big question has become like, at some point, what are they going to program? You know, because not only have festivals not been able to operate, but the film community has not been able to operate. You know, so some of these films have been films that have either been produced under really unusual circumstances or produced pre-pandemic.
Or third
Yeah.
category,
Yes.
New Zealand,
Oh,
Taiwan, or there are countries that locked down early and maybe not exactly in the same sort of style we may choose. In other words, they did it under Marshall type of but they got rid of the pandemic.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
they can go back to film production sooner than we. I mean, they were able to go back to film production. So we're actually, I think, going to be getting more foreign films for a little while to fill that void.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. You know, and I think that that's, you know, that's a really good observation. I think, you know, the countries that were fortunate enough to be smart about this and think about, you know, human life, you know, may actually be, you know, producing some great stuff. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, you may see an increase of. Is South Korea in good shape? I think they are.
I think maybe. I think maybe.
I think they are. I don't know, because I'm just seeing it, maybe because I rented one series on Netflix, but all of a sudden, you know how all the algorithms, all I'm seeing now is South Korean content on my Netflix.
Right. And there's so much recycled content out there too, and on a lot of these streamers. It's very, very interesting, you know, like how Swamp Thing will make the jump from, you know, the DC universe to CW, you know, like when they're struggling for new shows. So it is very interesting. But again, back to like on the festival thing, yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be very, very interesting, and I think it may need to remain virtual for a while. I mean, I've sort of been, you know, extended invitations to, you know, to some festivals like, you know, Ebert Fest in Calgary and stuff like that, for much later in the year, like, you know, September, October. So we'll see, you know, how those things pan out. But, you know, because it's a whole other thing of like, you know, how do you get there? You know, like I'm willing to, you know, like I'd be willing to drive to Ebert Fest.
Me too. We can share driving if you're
willing. I'd be willing to drive to Ebert Fest, but like I wouldn't necessarily be willing to drive to Calgary. You know, so it's like, you know, like you're like, oh, excited because you know that like in your community, people are going to try to be smart about things. I think we understand that now, but you're not in your community when you get on a plane. You know, there's always some guy who's going to want to take his mask off and be like, I don't want to wear a mask. And
well, now that Biden's in the White House, maybe things will improve in that regard.
I hope so.
You know, I think there'll be a different. Well, it's a top-down type of thing. You know, if the leader of the country is walking around like a jackass all the time, mocking people wearing masks, it sends a message. But if all the leadership are really, you know, playing by the rules, I think it will have an effect on the culture. You know, the idiots will be the last to do it, but most of these people that would normally just follow the rules, and then, you know, there's less of an emphasis or respect for being obnoxious. You know, I mean, it'll change. I know that there'll be a lot of naysayers out there, pessimists who think that I'm out of my mind, but I actually think that the culture is going to change, sort of shift back quite a bit. I mean, it's a large conversation, but
Oh yeah.
I'd be surprised if you're on the plane. And
Yeah,
also, there's going to be new mandates, and I mean, for plane travel, it's going to be, by law, will be different. They won't even let you on the plane if you're not probably show you've been vaccinated or tested, at the very least tested.
Right. I mean, God knows, if that all comes off without a hitch, I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah.
Because
this should have been done like 10 months ago, you realize, right?
Yeah. I mean, all I want to do is get on a plane again, like I do. I want to get, I want to go fly somewhere. And, I've spent the last, 8 months fighting with Delta because they won't give me a refund on my, when I got hospitalized, and they're not giving me a refund. I'm like, this is not, I want my $800 back. They're like, we'll give you a credit. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know when I'm going to get on a plane again, but that being said, like I want to get on a plane. I want to go fly. I want to, I mean, there's nothing that I get more joy from than seeing new cities and meeting new people and stuff like that.
Me too. Yeah.
It's so interesting you brought up these different countries and stuff like that, because I think, just as a kind of a sidebar, one of the things I'm most excited about coming out of COVID, coming out of just this political divisiveness and this war that we're having with with the unknown at this point. Great thing about all the great wars is that great films have come out of them. I mean, look at so neorealism came out of World War II, and we had Sika and Fellini and all these and like art changes as a result of this stuff. And I think that like we have these conversations about like what is it going to look like, and I don't think we know, and I don't think we should know. I think it's up to the folks who are creative.
Well, that's what the artist's role is, right?
Yeah,
that's to tap into that zeitgeist or that.
Exactly, it's their time to kind of lead. Once it's safe, to kind of lead us out of this with new looks, new ideas. And I think that there's a lot of filmmakers who you're gonna get your like, let's make a movie about COVID, and let's make a movie about but the ones who come out of this with new, fresh ideas are going to be the ones that change history again. And we like every 10, 15, 20 years we have filmmakers who change history and change the way things are looked at. And that's what's really exciting to me, is that I want somebody to do something new, and the hand has been forced. So it's like and I like, it's one of the things that school always tries to get me to teach class on, like teach Tangerine and talk to people about like what they can do in a pandemic. And like, and my feeling is like, I love teaching, creating by a very limited means, but at the same time, Tangerine was not, it was totally different than what we.
And you brought up Tangerine, so I'm just gonna say, this is what it was shot with. This is the whole trick behind it. All you need is one of these cheapo gizmos you can order on my Amazon, and you put it on your camera like that, and the next thing you know, you're Sean Baker.
There you go. Well, no, it's not the whole trick. We did our dolly shots with a 10-speed bike, and we did our overhead techno crane shots with a paint roller.
I don't know that I had Sean on for, what was the film with James Ransone again? What was?
Oh, that was, well, he was in Tangerine. He was also in
Starlet. He was in the
as well
towards the end. What?
He's also in Starlet.
Yeah. That's
the adult film.
I remember it, but I'm just trying to remember which one I talked to them together. I talked to them together. Anyway, I should have had you on there, but it would be fun to do you and Sean together at some point.
I'd love to do that. There may be something coming up. We'll talk.
Okay.
Secret thing.
Okay.
A secret thing that'll take us in the way back time machine. So we'll talk.
Tough off camera, off Zoom.
There we go.
Great. This has been great.
I loved it. I'm so happy that we got to do this.
Me too.
Thank you, by the way, for just lightening everybody's lives with your music, like every day. It's great. You made my wife and I so happy. So I like, yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Oh, yeah, right. The Indigo Girls.
Hmm.
It's interesting that song. It was such a popular song at my summer camp, and I never played it, and I never had any interest. But what I was doing through the early days of COVID is like we have a Facebook group, the camp community that I went to, and I was a counselor at way
Okay.
back. But we're all reconnected deeply because of the pandemic, because of quarantining. And what I decided to early on was to, right at the beginning was, and I had not been picking up the guitar. You didn't know I ever played. We've known each other for a
Right.
few
No, I
years,
had no
not
idea.
closely, but nobody in the film world knew that have been playing music since I was but I had put it aside largely until
Right.
till the pandemic, and I was stuck there, and I really just got back into playing. And the reason I got into it was back into it was because of this camp thing where I said every day I'm going to post a camp song. So we had, like 100 songs, let's say, arbitrarily, that we sang throughout the summer over a course of many years, but that were in the regular songbook, so to speak. And I just said, I'm going to put up a song every day because they're nostalgic now. I mean, these are songs, I'm talking about the 25 years ago, 30 years ago,
Right.
So, so I started doing one a day and thinking, okay, I'll do this for a couple of months and then we'll be done. The reason is because the pandemic kept going, the quarantine kept going. So
Right.
I just kept playing and playing and diving deeper. And then I started to really want to get better again and start to take the songs a little bit, like work on them more. And
Right.
I'm not saying that particular song we're referring to was that and the best example of it, but there have been others. But it's been this remarkable experience where now I've just so I've been putting them up on on my public page because I just thought it's fun to do,
It's great.
and
It's great. And you've
it's
got
so
such a great response,
most of the time. So but I finally brought in my good guitar that had been needing repair for a long time, and I brought it in to this up here. There's in Woodstock, which is about a half hour away, there's a guitar guy, a luthier they called him, and he's repairing it. He's going to put it back so it's like better than ever.
Well, that's
I
great.
can't wait to get it because it'll make it sound even better what I'm doing. Now, I was thinking of getting a new guitar, but we'll see how this comes out. Maybe I won't need to.
Well,
It's so much fun.
music was my first love. So, before anything else, I was a singer. So, and
You were.
yeah, I had a band before I was a filmmaker. I had a rock band that played CBGBs regularly. And
You did?
yeah, we played during its final weeks. We were called Shot. And we retired the band on CBGB stage because the band wanted to break up. So we were like, okay, we're gonna do one show. We did a 3-hour show about 2 weeks before they closed. We were one of the final bands to
I can't
play.
believe
So,
it.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
What was the name of the band?
It was called Shot.
Oh, you just said it.
Yeah,
Shot.
yeah.
I only played CB Gallery. Remember for a while they had the acoustic room?
Yeah, so we did the gallery and the main stage. We would alternate on a monthly basis. So we would do an acoustic show and a hardcore, not hardcore, but rock show.
Right. Well, it'd be funny if we could go back in time and see if we were booked on the same night.
Cross paths, exactly.
We just passed each other and nodded in slow motion.
Yeah. And they were I tell people about when I give my lectures on all the middlemen who are here in the film business, and we need some of them. Some of them have integrity, and most of them hopefully have integrity, but like there are those that don't. And I always talk about my experience with CBGBs and eliminating the middleman and dealing directly with with Hilly and his wife and understanding why they went out of business because they paid everybody so well. It was really they gave a really good portion of the door. They took, the whole band and stuff like that. Normally we're used to going and I have to bring in 20 people and then you get paid.
Who did he have running this gallery? And she was she had a French name. Micheline.
Yeah. And and that was such a great experience on a regular basis. We had we would bring in lots and lots of people, and it was just a wonderful. We miss those days. I miss those days.
One of the no, I mean I do too. But one of the songs that I wrote, because I wrote a lot of stuff back then. I have been writing. It's my goal is to kind of see if I can get back into it. But it starts with some feedback guitar.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's all she heard probably. And she just, that song. And then she goes, when I called Micheline, but she said, oh, you may want, this was the first time. And she goes, I think you really want the main stage. But I'm
Right.
like a guy with a guitar, I'm like, no. It's, trust me, you want me in the acoustic room.
Right.
I mean, I could have brought, because I had a band.
Right.
I played sometimes solo or with one other person, or sometimes 3 or 4 people, depending
Right.
on the room and the circumstance, how many people I thought I could bring, because
Of course.
I had to pay people, things like that. So anyway, it was it was a great time.
Yeah, CB's was kind. We did a benefit for CB's with for when New Orleans had all the flooding. We brought in the Trachtenberg family players. We brought in Ari Hast. We brought in a bunch of people and did.
Oh, Ari, he was on the label. I worked at Sony Music, and he was on
Oh, cool.
Columbia or Epic. I don't remember which.
Right.
He was on, huh? Yeah, I saw him play once or twice. Well, I know I saw him once at Joe's Pub.
Right.
Anyway.
Good times. Miss those days, miss CBGBs,
Me too.
But, but someday we'll go back.
Yeah.
We'll go back in time.
Does Fran Lebowitz talk about CBGBs in that series?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
This Netflix Scorsese series.
Yeah, I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, I have to watch it. Somebody was recommending it, and I saw his earlier film with her, documentary about her, which was pretty good. And then I ran into her on the street on the Upper East Side last year, and I said, I got to talk to you. I can't just let you walk by. Right. So she couldn't have been nicer. She was really nice. Yeah, she was very nice. You can't be sure because she has that very dry.
Yeah.
But sometimes those are really the nicest people.
Of course, but there's a brain I'd love to pick. Like I love her.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, all right, man. Onward with the day, huh? Let's do it again anytime.
Yeah, for sure. I'll
with Sean, without, with we'll do something with the pandemic players for sure.
Cool. We've got other, there's other stuff coming up too. I'll keep you posted on, and let's do it again for sure.
Okay, great.
All right. Great talking to you, man.
Same Absolutely here. Great. All right. I'll be in touch.
Take care, man.
When I post this.
All right. Yeah, keep me posted. Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.